This is Fam Electric Ghost, and we are live on our Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook channels with the VELVICKS. And there we are.
Yeah,
and
thanks for having us.
yeah, we're gonna what we like to do with every band we have put on ever since we got into video is we have the ability to actually show a piece of the band's work on their YouTube channel. And so what we've got queued up is a video they have for their song Run, and we're gonna actually play that in its full entirety, and then we're going to get into the interview with the band. So just hold on, and we're going to show this so people get a flavor of what you sound like before we go
Excellent.
into depth.
Yeah, I think that's a good plan.
Yeah, as it seems to work. We've been doing it. so,
Awesome.
so here we're going to go with the song "Run," and then we'll put you on mute, and then we'll catch you on the back end.
Dance, mama.
She gets off with a little revolver. Thank God she dropped the needle. Forced me across the border. I showed no resistance. No one needs a witness. You don't want to mess with me, no. Never tumble. Now you got the picture. Yeah. I want to make a statement. Your wings are so little. Next round should be water. Don't try to be easy. Yo. Do it for the money. She does it for the sketches. Never ever tumble. Now you got the picture. Yeah. She's a ride for the night. With me, she's alright for the night. With me, so just a little bit of soul. You get a little bit of everything. You always on the run. You run away from everything. Talk with a little revolver. Thank God she dropped the needle. Shows up past the hour. Blames it on her bill. No one uses a witness. You don't want to mess with me, no. Never ever tumble. Now you got the picture. Yeah. She's a bird for the night with me. Yeah. She's a bird for the night. Yeah. With me. So, with just a little bit of soul, you get a little bit of everything. You always on the run. You run away from everything. With just a little bit of soul, you get a little bit of everything. Whoa. You always on the run. You run away from everything. So, just a little bit of soul.
So that was the VELVICKS and the song Run, and we're coming back. So we are back now. So you
There
can
we
hear
go.
me?
Yes,
You can
loud and clear.
Yeah, cool. Making the transition, sometimes it doesn't work right, but we got it right. But, yeah, that's a really cool sound because I'm a big fan of like bands, because
Mm,
you can see I'm a musician, I'm a keyboardist, but you see all my gear back there.
Yeah, yeah.
I play like real keyboards, not
I
like
see the
jumping up.
cockpit. Yeah.
Yeah, not jumping up and down on the CDJ. I'm kind of I know that's what the thing is today, but I'm kind of old school. I'm in my 50s, so
Yeah.
I was always on a board or on a Fender or on a clarinet or
That's
saxophone or
awesome.
something.
Yeah, yeah.
So I like seeing people who are still playing instruments.
That's cool, right? There's something that still echoes in it's something tribal, it echoes. It's just
Yeah,
we play for 13-year-old kids and they get music is like when it comes from it when it's made in front of you, it's impactful,
yeah, it's real. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just something about it because I mean I was I started off. I'm a child of the '70s, right? So I was growing up to Zeppelin and Hendrix and Allman Brothers and
Yeah.
all, and everybody. I was in basement bands and we are trying to play the Clash, and
That's
with
amazing. Oh, I mean, that's the prime. That's where everything that we listen to comes from.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah,
It's just
it, it
cool to
it's the
see guys still
backbone
doing
of rock.
it. Yeah, well, rock is cool because a lot of people say it's going away because there's so many other forms today that are not rock. But
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, but rock to still to me is like a core of what I'm into, even though like I get associated with electronics, but I'm still more like like a Genesis is like the kind of
Okay.
band I was like into,
Yeah. Oh,
or Yes,
excellent. Cool.
you know,
Yeah.
so bands like that or Pink Floyd. I mean, that's kind of like that's where I'm coming from. But you guys, you're talking about coming back to the basement, like that's where I started. I was in the basement with my brothers, trying to we get black punk band, but
Oh,
you guys,
cool. That's
you
awesome.
had so you guys are from like Brazil, is that the
Yeah,
case?
yeah.
And
We all met there, but the band was finally it became a band in the basement in Bed-Stuy.
yeah, New York.
Yeah,
Well, that's a
yeah.
really good bones, because you got the CBGB vibe, you got the old kind of Ramones.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what brought us here. We were like, hey, let's uh let's go to the land of the rock and roll and make some rock music and see what happens.
Well, I always ask people when they get into music, or one of the first questions I always ask is like when did you first get into music? Like what age did got you interested in wanting to be a musician?
I'd say I I was brought to America at the age of 6, 7, very young with my family, with my parents, and we went to Florida and Miami. We spent a huge chunk of my childhood until like the age of 13, and then we came back to Brazil, and then back again to America for another year. It was kind of crazy moment, and that moment I found music. My brother brought a guitar home, and he was my older brother. He still is like means the world to me,
Hmm.
and I saw him playing that guitar, like nylon guitar, and and then he would walk away, do something else, and I looked at that, and I sat down with that, and I'd say 14, 15, and then my life changed, like, and then I'm here, like I've never let go of guitar again. It was my thing, and it really helped me adapt and socialize and bring down walls and shields and just straight connect to people. And it was, besides being a therapy,
Well, it's a big melting pot because there's so many bands. Like you hear the story, like the Van Halens, right? English wasn't their first language, Eddie and
yeah,
Alex,
yeah,
but
yeah,
they loved rock, and that helped them connect. Like, because in their, in that world, you would think everybody would love the Van Halens, but they were kind of being bullied. But
wow,
then
yeah,
when they like people saw how good they were, Alex was on the drums and Eddie was on the guitar. Then it's like, and then David Lee Roth came along and it kind of opened it up because they couldn't really voice it. They could do the
really,
drums and the
yeah,
guitar. But
Fascinating.
then when they found like the guitars, but you see a lot of stories of a lot of different immigrant bands or people in bands that were
Yeah,
immigrants,
yeah.
and they found this kind of vibe that they get pulled into the whole kind of rock thing, and I'm a African American, so blues and Louisiana and jazz
No,
is
that's
like
where
a
it came
big,
from.
big
Yeah,
yeah, big influence of like everything that I'm into. That came from the church, came from blues, came from rock, and
that's amazing. You have no idea how that echoes all over the world. In Brazil, it's like I know people that their dream is to go to attend a church mass with like real
with a
gospel
gospel
singers.
choir like
Yeah,
in
yeah.
down south, deep south, yeah, because that's where like Aretha Franklin and a lot of the Motown
You kidding
artists, like
me? It gave me the chills. Like it's you
Marvin
know.
Gaye, I mean, all those guys, all the Temptations and the Four Tops, they all come from that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and like people they go to Louisiana, go to Mississippi, they go to the Delta, they go to Alabama,
yeah,
they go to Georgia, just to try to pick that vibe up. Even the Stones used to come into Muscle Shoals
yeah, yeah,
to
yeah,
try to pick up that vibe.
yeah,
And it's real. I mean, it's a real vibe. Like I got like a lot of what I know how to do is because of church.
yeah.
I
That's
learned
it. It's
how to play
amazing.
the keyboards, not
Wow,
because I was trained, but because like church
that's
teaches
amazing.
kind of just teaches you, and it's because it got this African American kind of tradition of this music,
Yeah.
and you pick up on it, and then you go like, well, I don't want to just do gospel. I want to do some punk.
Yeah,
I want
I
to do
get
some
the
rock.
chills. I'm not kidding. It's amazing. It is. It is a vibe. It is something that if like I said, I know people that their bucket list is to attend like a mass.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it is. It's like a real thing. It's like the big import export that America has is our art.
Yeah,
You know,
for sure. Yeah,
art is like in music has been a big primary thing of like how we communicate
yeah,
with the rest of the world, and we
yeah.
give something positive. Because
And
there are all these other
that's
things
yeah,
you could look
yeah,
at and say, "Well, is that positive?" But the music is somewhat positive.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah.
So let me into the idea of working on music. So your brother was playing guitar, you picked up on it. So did you just primarily stay with vocals and like lyrics, or did you pick up an instrument, or just be your
No,
voice?
I was this. It was a very it's funny. It was a very old nylon guitar that had like two E strings, like instead of the entire, it was like super, it was like whatever. But it was enough to introduce me to that world. And I spent like most of my teenage years in bed and not sophisticating performing, but songwriting, you
Hmm.
know? I
Yeah,
spent
that's a
time
cool.
writing songs. Like I don't know. I must have like on record like almost 3,000 songs that probably 200 might be good. But
Hmm.
it took it's
The
a
craft,
learning
yeah.
curve, and you like, and I listened to tapes of when I was a kid, and it's endearing, but it's like I would never share with anybody. But I listen to myself with the first. I see where I come from. I'm like, wow, like just sit. It's like learning how to fly a jet. Spend those
Yeah.
10,000 hours doing whatever that you will get the hang of it.
Yeah, it's kinda like the muscle memory, like a lot of
Yeah.
musicians, like, I did it because, I was going to school, right? I was being taught on a clarinet and a flute, and that's not really
Okay.
a rock instrument, right? So I'm like
No.
so then I picked up keyboards because, like, I love watching The Doors. I'm like, "Oh,
Fuck yeah.
that Ray
Yeah.
Manzarek, that's it," right? And then I was
Yes.
looking
Yes.
at the Allman
He's,
Brothers
he's,
and see Greg
he's
Allman
the
on
backbone. Yeah.
yeah, on a Hammond B3, and I'm looking like Stevie Wonder and Herbie Hancock, and I was like, "Okay, that's what" I tried to do guitar, I couldn't do it. My brother
Mm,
could do the guitar, and then
mm.
I said, "Well, what can I do that's rock?" And then I'm looking at, like, all these rock bands that have keyboards, like Yes and Emerson, Lake and Palmer and
Yeah.
Genesis,
Yeah.
and I said, "Well, there's some cool stuff you can do with that." And so I
And
started,
even
like,
the
trying
bands that don't have piano or keys, when you see them live, they have somebody there.
yeah, 'cause it gives you that other flavor, when you bring a even if you just have a regular piano, you listen to the Stones. Like,
Yeah.
once the Stones introduced piano, like, on, like, Exile on Main Street
Yeah.
and other songs, then it brings, like, some intricacies and some stuff that you can do that when
Yeah.
you just have the guitar, you can't do it. Um,
No, no, no. It just bring it's, and I know I've always found fascinating keys because you literally look at music on a totally different perspective. And I'm a huge believer of the instrument that you write a song on has a huge impact on the song. You
Yeah,
know, if
that's
you're
true.
like more rhythm, piano, you got the melody, and you got the percussion. You know,
Yeah, yeah, you can do
and
the bass, you can you pre I love the reason I got into keyboards is because I could write the song. Because I was in a
yeah,
garage band, right? And I was trying to do guitar, and we're doing all this punk stuff, and I said, "Well," I was the primary songwriter, and I said, "Well, if I use these keyboards, I can write everything."
yeah,
So
you
I had,
got
like
everything. Yeah, you
yeah, I
got
had,
the
like, a
bass, you
roll.
got everything there, and it's in your eyes, and you can see. You know, it's different. I have something because I'm not educated guitar player. I'm self-taught,
Mhm.
so I adapt myself to what works for me. So I'm always
Yeah,
starting songs on E, and mostly because the E gives me range, high
yeah.
and low range, visual high and low range, so I can see where I can
Where
go.
you
You
going?
know,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can't read music and say, okay, I'm going to try this. So it's important for me to see where I can go to and work around that. And when I started showing the band music and stuff, uh, the player would say, okay, there's a lot of the bass that you're doing here that you don't need to do that. We're gonna have a bass player. And in my world, I had to do it. I would do walking bass and guitar,
Yeah, yeah, because 'cause you're writing a
but it was
demo.
not. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. So, and it's not when you have a band. Don't worry about that. You know, to the point that now, like some the most recent shows, I may play a song or two on the guitar, but when it's something that's to do with gear or whatnot, I just sing. And now we're getting the we're getting to the moment of that the band is really, the synergy is really happening, and
you
it's
guys got
very cool.
you know your roles. Yeah, it's interesting because, like, I was in I like the keyboard, like I said, because I could write the parts. I could put down a rudimentary bass line. I could put the chords down. I could give the chart to a guitar player. And of course, the guitar player might take what I did and then use Beatle chords, right?
Okay, yeah,
Or try to come at it like Keith Richards, or try to
yeah,
come
of
at it
course,
like Chuck Berry, or try to come at it like Lightning
yeah,
Hopkins or something. You just come
yeah,
at it a different way. But I would give them an example. Like, here's what I think the song could be, and then I would let everybody go and take it. Like I'd
yeah,
have like a drum beat coming off an 808 or a 909, and then I say, "Hey, I know you're a drummer. You're going to take that and make it way more elaborate." This was just an
exactly,
example. Now it's
yeah,
like a
for
click
yeah,
track. I just put something down and I say, "You guys don't have to like stay within this, but this is just something because I
yeah.
was writing
This
all the
this
songs."
is, we call this, it's the seed, right? We call this is the
Yeah,
seed
yeah,
where we're gonna grow from it. Yeah,
yeah. And I always like to say, "Hey, pull all the parts out and just redefine them." I just had something to start with, and then
yeah,
sometimes we say, "Hey, we hate that. Let's just jam." And then the
yeah,
jam would end up being better than what I wrote. And I was
yeah,
always say,
for
fine. It's
sure.
like if we throw out 80% of what I wrote and we just go with the jam, that's fine.
Exactly. And but there's something to that too. I mean, I've seen so many people that they're so stuck to what is, you know, expected in his head, and that can be harmful. You know, like if you have the wisdom and be wise to understand that, that's also a huge part of being in the band, of saying, you know what, this is sounding like like not even to say better, but different in a way that everybody's connected and everybody's having fun and everybody's putting their guts and their sweat into it, and you see their faces and there's a smile all around. It's
Well,
way
it's cool
better
when
than
you have a
being
band that's fully,
responsible for every part of it. You know?
yeah, I think it's cool when you have a band that's fully engaged. Is sometimes in the life of a band, you come to practice and then nobody has anything. And so, and then you come to practice and people have something. So it's kind of a different day, different scenario, right? So if you get a
Yeah,
band where like some days nobody's got it, right? So then I'm like, I was the primary songwriter, I would always have something. But then it's like if somebody came that day and they say, "Hey, let's just jam," I said, "Fine," because then you guys want to do something. So it's kind of like
yeah,
if the band wanted to do it, then I
yeah,
let them like go with it. And then if
yeah,
they came in and like, I don't got nothing, then
yeah,
let's go with the demo, and it's,
yeah.
you kind of just go with the feel of the day.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. We
And I
made
found,
one of our songs that hit me like sugar. It's one of our most known songs between our followers in the live scene. Uh, was we started literally because band practice for us is like bring a six pack and it's time for us to have fun. You know, friends hanging out.
mhm,
You know, So everybody got the 6 pack, and we sit back, and before we play, there's like we spend like a huge chunk of time just talking and whatnot. And then the bassist, he got he turned on the bass, and to get the volumes on and stuff, he started do 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 do, which is the riff of that,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the song almost came out automatically like that. The drummer started, and the guitar player started, and then it was like it's almost like if the song existed and it was in a different
yeah. It's in the
frequency,
ether.
and then we just tuned into it. Yeah,
Well, I've heard a lot of bands say that like the song is in the ether, it's in the wind, right? And they
yeah,
just pick
yeah,
up on it. Hendrix was
yeah,
famous for getting into
yeah,
trouble when he was on the Chitlin circuit. Jimi Hendrix, was backing up the Isley Brothers. He was backing
yeah,
up Little Richard. He's backing all these people up, and they would be like doing these recording sessions, and then sometimes Hendrix would just go off and do something that was like Hendrix. It wasn't Little Richard. It wasn't the Isley Brothers. And
yeah.
they'd say, what are you doing? And then he
Mm.
said, well, I just picked up on this. I didn't want to let it go
Yeah,
because I
yeah,
might lose it. So
yeah.
I'm using your tape. And he said, well, you shouldn't be using our tape for that. But
Uh,
Hendrix was Hendrix, and so he was like they're taking advantage if he could,
yeah,
because he knew where he's going to be. He knew he was going to get bigger. But I kind
yeah,
of feel like that was kind of the story that he felt like he was
yeah,
picking up things, like
yeah. It is.
he was like taking things up out of the cosmos or something, and he just
No, I
had to
totally
put
believe
it
that.
down. He just had
Yeah,
to put it down. So I'm like, I can get that. I get
yeah,
that totally.
yeah, yeah.
So um so you realized you had a talent, you started, working on it, but when did you feel like you wanted to write your own music? And that's like a big difference because there are people who become like studio musicians, people that that work in orchestras.
Yes, yes,
Like,
yes.
what made you decide you want to write your own music?
Uh, that's a good question. Just for starters, I, I think I was blindly in love with making music, and I don't think that yeah, I did. I think I had a talent, but I don't think I was like, wow, I am amazing at this. But wow, this does wonders to my life, to my head, to my body, to my relationship with my family, to me as a dude, like you know, to everything in school. It just clicked something in me with music, and I developed that, and uh, spent time from the get go starting to try to write my own stuff. I knew it was like baseless, and it was like sounded very immature or very childish, but uh it was awesome. And I would show it to a friend or another, and like my brother, I would show it to my brother because most of the time I wanted to get him like wowed about it, and it barely ever worked. But I think that was kind of the challenge of like trying to get something that made sense. And so from the beginning, I think I started writing my own stuff, and it was hugely like comically criticized by like especially when I was in Brazil, writing stuff in English in a small town. People would like not even understand about where I was trying to
What
come,
you're writing,
what I was
you're
trying to
writing.
do. Yeah, but I have that vision. I for sure did have that vision that like at some point I would follow the professional path of it. I mean, not professional just monetarily, but on
Yeah.
the league of professional musicians, of talented people. Like the guys I play with, they're fantastic. They're all Berkeley graduates, and I've never been there, but there's a mutual respect, you know?
Yeah, I think it's like every singer songwriter I've ever talked to kind of felt like, they start really young and they just seem to know that they got the
Yeah,
muse or something. Like I've been a
yeah,
big fan of like poetry. I used to read all this Victorian poetry like Wordsworth and
cool.
Tennyson
Yeah,
and all this stuff. And William Blake. And William Blake, he used to always get me because he was never famous in his time, right? He wrote Tiger, Tiger, the Fearful Thy Symmetry and all this great stuff, right? But they were all these etchings and they found him in a farmhouse, and he wasn't famous in his time. He became
Yeah.
famous in the Victorian era after people found his work. And when they found his work, they saw this guy that was driven to write all this stuff, and he wasn't even trying to be famous. He just felt like it was like he just had the
It's
need
awesome. I
to
love it.
do it.
Yeah.
I really think that that represents a lot of what singer-songwriters do, right?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
you just do it because you feel like you've got the passion,
Yeah,
you
you have to
don't
do
care,
it. Yeah.
and you just
And
have to do it.
there's nothing happening in your life. I speak from from myself, but that is more thrilling, more exciting. That we're talking about that dating girls at the age of 16, 17, or friends
Yeah,
going out for sports. And like literally, I would have people banging on my door. Hey, let's go. There's a party. I'm like, I can't.
y
I gotta show
you're
you this.
working.
Like, and they just leave. you
You know,
know,
like me and my
I
band, like, yeah, I think anytime you choose to be in a band, and like, people don't realize, like, when I was like 17, I was with my band in the basement and everybody's partying, like you said. I'm
yeah,
17 years old and
yeah,
I'm at band practice. And then I'm 22 years old and I'm at band practice. I'm 24
yeah,
years old, I'm at band practice. It's like you just there's a certain thing about thing when you get that dedicated as a musician that you take the time. And
yeah.
before anybody ever sees you on stage, you're off somewhere working
Oh
to
yeah, yeah,
get where you need to be. And it's
yeah.
like however people think musicians are, we do this and do that. There's a lot of dedication
Oh
and a
yeah,
lot of work nobody sees to get
yeah,
where you end up being when you get
yeah.
on that stage. You
Oh yeah,
end up putting a lot of work in that nobody knows about, or maybe your friends
absolutely.
know about, but that's what you have to
Yeah,
do.
and most of the time, especially back then, now it's a little bit more, I don't know, educated about it. But it wasn't even work. It was just like, stop playing the guitar. We've been playing the guitar for 3 hours.
Like, what are you doing?
What are you doing? Played enough guitar. Let's go to something else. Oh no, no. Like I remember back then of spending like hours on end and then like not feeling my entire body and like 4 hours in the same position. And then for like I would put my back up like that and the pain, like I'm like,
Yeah,
holy shit.
yeah.
And I had
The
to like lay down for a second because I was in the same position, like meditating. You do not see that you're going through that process for hours, that you're in the same position, you know?
Yeah, like drummers. You think about how much work a drummer has to do in a practice, right?
Exactly.
If you're
It's what
playing for 2 hours
yeah.
as a drummer, like how much work is that? That's a lot of work.
Well, that's when they asked Bruce Springsteen about, hey, your shows are almost 4 hours. How do you do it? He's like, well, don't ask me, ask my drummer. How does he do
How's he do it?
it?
Yeah, because the drummers and the bass players are like, you got to play that long, it's like it's hard. You got a band with like a horn, like a Earth,
Yeah,
Wind, and
you don't
Fire.
stop. All your members and all like you're like all you're holding the entire thing on your
Yeah,
on your tempo. You are the like
you're the timekeeper,
literally.
yeah,
eh,
you're not the
Yeah,
no drum machine. You're the timekeeper. Imagine
yeah.
how hard
Every
that is.
song, most of the songs has drums. You might like take a break or one or two that he just plays a little guitar there. What he do? He drinks water. It's like the
Well, yeah, you
basic
got to
of
drink water. You got to drink water. You got to work out.
yeah,
You got to have your arms there. You got to have your feet there. Your legs. There's a lot of
yeah.
work.
It's so much technique. It becomes such like the a subtle move and becomes like so. It's amazing. It's those guys are
Well,
like
it's
moving
all that muscle
schools.
memory. It's like being an athlete. There's a lot of people
Yes.
realize because there's a lot of muscle memory in being a musician. Like,
Yeah.
right? 'Cause there's all like people take that 3-point shot, right? Well, you're playing the guitar and singing like it's like that 3-point shot. You've got to get your body and your hands and everything in
Yeah.
time, and it
Yeah.
becomes like you do that song that many times and you just know it. Your body just knows
Exactly.
what
Yeah.
to do, and it
I heard a
just
friend say once. I never forgot. He's like, you want to like do something right first. Position yourself right for whatever you're doing, like because I told this story about sitting on the guitar. He's like, yeah, but I'm like, I was 18, I was in my bedroom on my underwear. You think I'm gonna like really put like the guitar up and play? Like,
in
no,
the
it's
right position.
it's
Yeah.
it's not there. I wasn't in the mindset of that. I was literally going into like the in between rhythm and lyrics and how to put the lyrics together or the melody, like and
You're more like a writing session rather than like, how you have to
yes,
perform.
exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's a different
yeah,
mindset when you're a writer, like when I'm in here in my cave, right, with all my sense and
mm,
I'm writing. it's like different than when I actually perform it. Because
Of course. Where are
I'm
you based
writing,
again?
I'm in New
I'm sorry.
Hampshire.
New
Yeah,
Hampshire.
but
Yeah.
like when I'm in my like little crazy room, I spend, as a synthesis, I spend so much time designing sounds. Like
Yes.
what I do,
Timber. Yeah.
I
Texture.
work
Yeah.
on, yeah, making the tone because I have machines that can make tones. And so I don't just like go hit a preset. I actually make tones before I
Of
start the
course.
song.
Yeah. That's the
That's
beauty
like
of it. Yeah.
that's half of why I do the music I do is because I like sound creation of the tones and sound design. And
Yes.
so that is like a whole different thing than just producing or whatever, because you take stuff that you find and I take stuff I create. And it's been like, from the beginning, I've always been into that, into the idea that these synthesizers can create tones from
Yeah.
scratch,
Yeah.
and then you can make drums beats from scratch. You can create drum sounds from scratch. I
Yes.
create
Yes.
kicks and
True.
hi-hats and cymbals and stuff from my own stuff.
Yeah.
And so I don't have to sample anybody else's stuff. And so they don't have to worry about copyright things and all that. So
Of
I
course.
just write my
Yeah.
own stuff. And that's like I think the whole thing with like people playing, natural or organic acoustic or rock instruments is like you can write your own thing. You don't have to sample somebody else's thing.
Yeah.
You write your own melodies, you write your own chord progressions. Maybe you're inspired because you love some other band. And
Yeah.
maybe that's why I'm going to get to the next question. It's like your influences, your reference points. Because a lot of people, I think if you think about the blues, like everybody's gonna be playing like a little bit of Lead Belly, a little bit of Robert Johnson. That's in the ether. That's what it is, right?
Yeah.
But when you get into like trying to write rock songs and stuff, well, there's always the Beatles, there's the Stones, there's like these classic
Yeah.
standard bearers, right?
Yeah.
And then you got the little niches where you get into different like zones like grunge and stuff. And I
Yeah.
see you like the Queens of the Stone Age and the Foo Fighters
Yeah.
and Black Keys
Yeah.
and Radiohead. Everybody's
Yeah.
got their influences, but like you can listen to that and then use like your interpretation of like a Radiohead is not exactly Radiohead. It's like
No, absolutely
you
not.
listen to Radiohead and then now you've got something because you're inspired by Radiohead.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. But it like some people might not even see it. It's like, and what we hear a lot is that there's a mix of so many bands in the 4 minute length of a song that we write that is that it's almost if they heard the song before, but they like because of so the it's so close to what's what's um what's been digested already by like the music
Yeah,
history or like industry, whatever you want to call it. And we are so close to that, but they can't pinpoint exactly what it is. And I think that was our goal. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel. We want to be that band that we're not trying to solve the problems of the world. We're just trying, hey, you want to like have a good time here, have a beer, let's dance and have a good time, because there's too much shit going on out there. And I think we need a little bit of lightness
it's
of
cool to have a like like they used to call them like party bands, or you have you
yeah,
had a band that's like just a straight rock band. You get
yeah.
into like a Tom Petty, or you get
Oh,
into like
love them. Love them.
it's like they just made these classic songs, and you're like, well, I hear a little birds, but then
Yeah.
I hear some like some other bands too, because it's like he's got this kind of classic vibe where he's kind of vibing
Yeah.
off
Yeah.
like a band and like
Uh,
Dylan
our
and the
last
Byrds.
release right now is there's a lot of people who I've been listening to hear a lot of Tom Petty on the song. It's so it
Well,
goes,
Petty was such a good songwriter that he just created like the classic Americana, kind of like the band
yeah,
did, but it
yeah,
more less country than the band and more like rock, like a pop
yeah,
rock. But then he had
yeah,
that kind of Rickenbacker, so he's got this like 12-string kind of bird sound. And the birds are so unique, right? You had you had Buffalo Springfield and the Birds were playing around with that kind of 12-string sound.
mm,
Um, and Petty was able to kind of get in that zone and say, well, it's not exactly the birds, it's something else, right? And so that's what's really cool is like when you can take a sound and it's like, well, that sounds kind of like the birds, but it's not.
yeah, yeah,
And that's
exactly.
yeah, it's real always cool. Like I feel like the
and
Beatles.
you're almost like, and then you're almost like validated to those fans of that specific genre, and
Yeah.
you're like you're already halfway in their hearts, you know.
Yeah, because you have something like if you sound like a little bit like Badfinger, right? Well, you're kind of the Beatles, but you're not. You're a little
Yeah,
bit more poppy than the Beatles, and
yeah,
you have this kind of sound, but you're in the same zone. So your Beatle fans are going to listen to you, and
yeah,
then like the Beatle fans will go and listen to like Badfinger,
yeah,
you know, and then they'll go listen to like Bad Company because well, Bad Company's kind of like Zeppelin, but they're not Zeppelin.
yeah,
They're kind of in the same zone, but not exactly. They're more
mm,
poppy. So there's
yeah,
like so you get it's always interesting to see where people kind of land in the
yeah,
pop kind of rock stratosphere or landscape.
yeah.
You're like, okay,
And also what they're trying to bring. I mean, there are songs that we were completely un focused and radio friendly or whatsoever. They're like 8 minute, 9 minute long with four solo parts. We have this kind of songs, you know. It's coming out on the eight, full album, but we haven't pushed them as singles because I mean
yeah, those
we
are the deeper cuts. Those are the things you
yeah,
play live.
exactly. Yeah, that's for someone who really likes the band and they go live and they see that like, oh, that's that song. It goes,
Well,
leave
that's
me
what's
alone, you
cool
know.
about having
Sit
a
back
rock
and wait.
band. Well, I think what's cool about having a band that actually plays is that when you have albums, you've got your
Mm.
singles and then you've got your live cuts. They're like the deeper tracks, but everybody wants to hear these like longer 5, 6, 8 minute songs, right? And in the
Yeah,
70s, I'm a child of the 70s, so I'm like, oh yeah, I love like, the Allman Brothers because they've got
yeah,
Melissa with like a 3 minute song, and then they've got their big 8 minute, 10 minute songs that when
yeah,
you went to the concert, okay, you want to hear Melissa, but then you want to hear one of their epics,
yeah,
they
yeah,
would go off and it's like you show the musicianship of the band. And that's like
yeah,
kind of why you want to go see the Dead or
yeah,
Zeppelin or the
yeah,
Stones. You want to get to those deeper cuts that go beyond 3 minutes
yeah, yeah.
when you're a live music fan because you're
And
like, okay, I want to see them
it
cut
gets
loose.
harder and harder. It gets harder
Yes.
and harder for bands like the Stones to like not play a hit to play something like, you know, the deep cut. And people like most there will be some people there like that waiting for years to see him, and he's like he didn't play whatever, you know, like it's tough
Yeah,
when you
yeah.
get a repertoire that big. It's, you know, you're never going to be able
They
to
just
like,
want to hear the 3 minute hits, but I think a lot of bands
yeah,
want to go and give people like
oh
why you
yeah,
want
for
to
sure,
listen to an
yeah,
album
yeah,
versus is a playlist because
no
we're living
doubt, no doubt,
in the age of a playlist, right? So
yeah,
in the age of the Spotify playlist and the Apple playlist and all these title playlists where you don't really get what you did back in the 70s. Like I was again a child of the 70s. I would listen to Led Zeppelin 4. I listened to the whole thing on vinyl because I got it on vinyl.
exactly, yeah,
Right. And I go get like a Pink Floyd album and then I go in the basement. I'm going on a headphones. I'm going to listen to the whole thing. Wish you were here.
yeah,
The whole thing all the way through.
yeah,
And then like trying to understand the concept or
yeah,
listening to Tommy, right? A rock opera or Quadrophenia from the Who. Like, oh, that's a rock opera. I'm going to listen to both
yeah,
sides,
yeah,
and just sit there for 2 hours trying to understand what Pete Townshend's trying to say, and
yeah,
I think that's kind of lost today when people have like a playlist with 20 different bands and they're all just looking for the
exactly,
beat.
yeah.
But
And you have this is pushed by the entire industry, you know, like it's the quick money making thing. It's not. Zappa said something very cool once in an interview, like that he was explaining why bands like himself and huge like, you know, influencers of modern music, the owners of the record label were the A&Rs. They just walked in a place. They had the old guys. They had no idea what was good or not, what sells or not. To just see a venue, the venue is packed. People were loving that. They just recorded what it is as is. They record, and that would come out. And there was albums so experimental and so cool stuff that we have from the 70s. And then they hired young guys to become A&Rs, and A&Rs they had goals to sell, and if it didn't sell, so they were responsible to what was trending and whatnot.
yeah,
So what he would do is try to replicate the last success that sold. and they look for bands and try to mold bands into the last thing that worked, and it became in this vicious cycle that now it's like we
Treadmill.
have six big record studios in the world that records the same guys that come out. It's like
Yeah, the
it's like
problem
any
is
other
like,
industry.
it's always been like, even when you go back to the Motown days, right? You had this kind of thing that, oh, you guys got to write a hit. Now, the cool thing was like the
Yeah,
Funk Brothers kept on trying different things, but the goal was they were trying to get the 3 minute hit to really kick out the box, right?
yeah,
But the creativity was when they had these guys that could play like at jazz level, right?
yeah,
They could play really, the Funk Brothers and the guys in the Motown crew were so good that they had really good drummers and really good bass players and guitar players,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
horn players that could come up with really catchy things, and they would come up with different versions of it. And sometimes
yeah,
they'd replicate themselves, but a lot of times they didn't. And that was what was cool back then. Is like, but today people find something and they run it to death. Uh,
yeah,
where before you had a guy that was a jazz musician and he said, well, okay, well, let's just work this different, and they physically work it, and it actually might be the same song, but they run it in such a way that it actually is
yeah,
new,
yeah,
versus today where it's actually the same thing.
yeah.
Run a
Totally.
bunch of different times instead of somebody doing key changes or running it in a different way or doing something really creative and altering it. It's not as creative.
Yeah,
And so that's kind of becomes like boring, and then becomes like a situation where it becomes like you're going to burn out the genre. Like if you have
yeah,
EDM and you always have the drop in the same position,
yes, yes,
eventually you're gonna that genre is gonna get burned out because everybody's
yeah,
doing the drop at the same time.
yeah,
Everybody's doing the beat the same way. They're all
yeah,
using the same samples. They're all using the same kicks. They're all using the
yeah,
same stuff, and it burns it out like disco.
yeah.
You burn it out, and then it's like, okay, well now you totally
And then
destroyed
it
it.
becomes dated, right? Just a dated thing.
Yeah, it's what you want is guys like Zappa, who is this freaking amazing like composer and musician that could come in and do this jazz orchestration, awesome rock and roll that is totally coming out of all these different directions. And no way would any modern producer allow him to do what he did.
No, no. That's
They
basically what
would
he
not,
was saying on the
they
interview, that he would never
wouldn't
be
allow him to do it, allowed to
signed.
do what he
Never be
did.
signed.
That he'd
Mm.
never be. I mean, like Hendrix wouldn't get signed just because
No.
Hendrix was breaking the rules. He's coming into the studio and doing feedback, and I was like, "What's that?" I mean, when Hendrix did the original stuff he was doing, all the engineers tried to EQ it out. And he had to go on the boards and say, "Hey, Eddie Kramer, don't take that out." Right. And he had to stand his ground, and he really fought
Yeah.
hard. And
Basically educating people, yeah. The
he had to,
pioneers, man. There's
he had to fight.
Mavericks.
And, the guys, like even the Kinks, the where we get this really heavy guitar on like You Really
Yeah.
Got Me is because Dave Davies from the Kinks broke his amp. He got pissed off one day in the studio and he broke his amp,
I didn't know
and he
that
got
story. That's
that You
awesome.
Really Got Me guitar sound. And the engineers said, "Oh, that's terrible. You can't use that." He said, "No, we're going to use it." And then they used it, and that became like this really guttural power kind of chord rock
Yeah.
sound that
It's
hadn't
very
really been
cool.
used before. Because it's a mistake. He broke something,
Yeah. That's awesome.
and
Yeah,
then
there's
people
there's
had to
there's
make.
like producers and engineers, they all grow, right? We grow together. Everybody's learning from everything, and then when the experimental part of music production got its chance, that was you get nothing but awesome stuff from that
Yeah, that's
era,
why
and
it's such a big like push. Every time I tell somebody tells me, "Oh, you can't do that key change, or you can't do this, and you can't do that," I'm always like, go back, listen to a Stones record, and tell me if you're in a DAW, would the DAW let you do what Keith Richards is doing?
yeah,
It would. It would tell
absolutely,
you that what he's doing is wrong, and that tells
yeah,
you right there that you can't listen to that.
yeah,
Because like if you want to write something cool, as cool as what Keith Richards is doing or as cool as what Curtis Mayfield ever did, it's not good. The DAW's not going to let you do that. So
Yeah,
sometimes you got to turn the DAW off and just hit the record and play it.
absolutely.
I'm a big fan of maybe you should kind of just go with like manually playing it in a groove and letting everybody pick up on the groove and don't care if it fits on the grid,
Yeah,
because grid life is cool for certain types of music. Like,
yeah,
okay, if you're doing hip hop, you're doing rap, you're doing EDM, it's cool to be on the grid. But
yeah.
don't let your rock or experimental kind of music be controlled by the grid.
Yeah, no, no, no.
You
Yeah,
should
like
let
even D'Angelo, like his art, like his album a couple of years ago, even like such genre that demands like to be so when it fluctuates, it's so trippy. It's like when
yeah,
the tempo changes and the voices go or whatever, you go like, woof, this is amazing, you know? So
that's
yeah,
what
it
I'm
shouldn't be
always looking for. I'm
mm,
always a big fan. Like I love the Velvet Underground,
yeah,
because
me too.
the raw nature of what Lou Reed and the Velvets used to do
I
is
love it.
it's so guttural, and some places say it's very simple, but sometimes being
Yeah,
very simple and being kind of punk and being like a
exactly.
little lo-fi, and it's like,
Look,
hey,
look what
maybe
Ramones did to the history of music, you know?
yeah, you don't have to be so clean. I mean, I think some of the problem with some of the music today, it's a little too clean. It's a little too
Yeah.
antiseptic. And like I go back and
Sometimes a little bit too schooled or too like coached, and now there's bedroom things that some people have that if you bring it to professionals, they're going to try to lapidate it and try to clean it. But some things sometimes you don't need that, you know?
you shouldn't clean. I mean, you should never clean the Ramones. You should never clean the Velvets, you know.
Yeah,
And if you go even listen to like Mitch Mitchell with the Who, I mean with Hendrix, Mitch Mitchell's like a jazz drummer. And if he's actually not keeping time like a traditional drummer, he's like soloing with Hendrix. And if
yeah,
you listen to how he drums, it's kind of like Keith Moon. Keith Moon with the Who, he would solo through the whole song. He's not a traditional drummer. He wouldn't keep time. He would actually pretty much solo, and Pete was actually keeping time on his guitar. And so I've always like, as a producer, I point people out. It's like sometimes it's cool to not actually do what you think you should be doing. Maybe you
yeah,
should do something a little bit more loose,
yeah,
maybe not as controlled, have a little more happy accidents, just
yeah,
get more free with the music and just be kind of more honest with yourself. And then sometimes it's like your third take is better than your 15th take.
yeah.
And you go with the early take just because it's more honest,
Yes, yeah, yeah.
because
100%. I agree.
it sounds more like what you really wanted to do, and then you started to second guess yourself, and then you didn't trust yourself anymore, and then you start like trying to clean it up.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you overthink it, like it just goes to I don't know.
Yeah.
There's some studio there has its expiration time. If like there's a bunch of things that go in the musician's head when there's the red light clicking. There's the time you spend in there. There's the investment that it needs to be done. There's the high productivity that is expected, and so there's it's long gone the days that people would just pay $500,000 in studio, stay as long
Yeah,
as
you
you
can't
want and
spend
do it.
6 months in the studio like the Stones could spend 6 months in a mansion,
Yeah, yeah,
in a basement just running for, and Almonds could spend like 5 months in
exactly.
somewhere you
That's not
can't do
happening
that.
anymore. We
Yeah,
spend a long time of crafting the songs, whether it's in practice space or live or playing, those songs out to feel it. But once we get in studio, is a couple hours. It's like
yeah, if you
bang,
don't
bang,
have
bang,
the
bang.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's kinda like I kinda get upset sometimes when I see, like, how little time we get to be in the studio, but
yeah,
then, like, so many people, because of COVID, have been doing, like, their own thing
yeah,
and with their own home studios, so they're kinda getting back to this kinda old school
yeah,
where they're able to put the time in
yeah,
that they want, because they say, "You know what? Maybe I'm not gonna get perfect, but I'm gonna get my full idea done
yeah.
without the
Which
time constraint," and then
exactly.
maybe it might not be sonically perfect, but it
Yeah,
actually musically is more interesting.
But that usually is kind of a standard in bands to have their production made home, or like through very like low quality audio recording, but they have that as their guide when they go into the
into the
studio.
studio.
You press play to that, so you can show the entire like people who's getting involved to that session to understand what it is, and then you usually just leave the lead vocal there. So if you're not recording all live, which is, I mean, I like to record live, but overdubs of vocals are always, a good thing to do.
Yeah,
Is the
well, I think
little
it
things here and there.
brings out the song, because then once you start doing all the overdubs, you add what the production engineering to a song,
Yeah,
is. I was listening to like a Tom Petty again, Damn Their Torpedoes. They were talking about how they built the record,
yeah,
and they were showing how Tom was overlaying his vocals and
yeah,
adding all these parts in that, and what you can do live versus what you do in the studio.
yeah. It's a different
And so
universe.
it's
Yeah,
like, what's your opinion? Like when you go to play live, you play a song a certain way, but when you go to do the studio version of a song, you start to do things to like pretty it up or do things you can't do live.
yeah, yeah. You're
You
doing
add,
things that like that's kind of there's a beauty to that too. Like Nirvana, when they recorded like guitars 27 times, 30 times of the same guitar.
yeah,
It was
you
like, what
can't
are you
do that.
talking about? You're gonna get 30 guitar players with 30 amps on stage. So that you
Yeah,
just do bang, bang, you go gang gang. Like, what's the size of that?
but it's kind of like this thing where that to me is kind of like what happened in the '70s with like the Pink Floyd and George Martin and the Beatles. Is the studio became an instrument, and so when you
Yeah,
do an album, you have like the album's going to represent a piece of art of things that you can't necessarily do live, but it's going to make the song have a statement that's
yeah,
different than what you do live. And so it's like this artistic statement that's way
exactly.
beyond what you can really do
Yeah,
in real life.
and
And
it
when you
becomes
go,
like you take a picture of that song. It's a photography of a song. When you record it in studio and you have that, you make it like look beautiful or whatever you want to do there. But most songs they live on, and then live, because you've been playing that song 4 times a week. The Naturally the guitar player says, "Hey, give me a couple, like give me like 24 bars," and he's gonna
yeah,
go do whatever he wants, and then
yeah,
like
yeah,
the drummer does whatever he wants, and then you look at each other, and he gives you like, "Hey," and that like in four you're gonna go back to the chorus, and that comes automatically being in the band and practicing and playing. I think that keeping the band on stages on all over the place, and with some high frequency, like often playing with the band live is the key thing to make a band last. You know,
oh yeah,
if you
you
got
definitely
shows,
have playing together like the whole core, because
yeah,
there's so much music today that actually doesn't depend on that. It's kind of
yeah,
like,
exactly,
like a music director and it's in the box, and then
yeah,
people are singing off of these like recorded backing tracks,
yeah.
and
But
even have
not making the mistake of like, oh no, we play too much and that's it. No, if you are world touring for 2 years and you don't stop, the band will most likely break, like Guns N' Roses or
yeah,
whatever. But I'm
yeah,
talking to
if you overdo
constantly, yeah, if constantly comfortably playing shows at your hometown, or like here and there now, or like
you
every
burn yourself out like the Eagles.
yeah, exactly. You don't want that. But if you're playing like a couple of shows a month at in a comfortable pace, and like getting the band always together, because it makes you, if you play live, it makes you practice. Practice
Yeah, yeah,
makes you jam. Jam makes you write new songs. Writing new
yeah,
songs makes you go to the studio. Going to the studio makes you record and master and like edit and like make a song ready to release. Releasing a song gets you all the work of like talking to press, talking to things, and that brings you back to playing it live, because now you have new music to play
I
live.
think it's
So
all about it's a balance. It's like you see what
yeah,
happens to bands where that got out of balance. Like you said,
yeah,
like Guns N' Roses, like the Eagles, they
Yeah.
ran into this problem where both of those bands were kind of forced because of their own success to be running the hits every night all
Yeah.
over the world to the point that they burned themselves out. They
Yeah.
got mad at each other, they yell at each other.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
wasn't.
Yeah.
It became not fun because if
Yes.
you get I heard the Eagles got to a point where they were fining each other if they didn't play Hotel California exactly as it was on the record. And then I'm like, well, is that really fun? Because if you ask the Allman Brothers, right, they never played their songs the same way. They
Yeah.
kind of stayed in the same zone, but the fun
Yeah.
of the band is of a jam band is you're gonna let them come out like a jazz band, and a jazz band like Miles Davis, they don't play Bitches Brew the same every day.
Exactly.
They different interpretations, and the Hendrix experience was like that. You
Yeah.
go back and listen to how many times all the different performances Hendrix did with the experience, and like every night was a little different,
Yeah.
and that is what I think keeps you wanting to do it. Because if you
Yeah.
felt like,
Yeah.
yeah, I gotta play this song note for note exactly the way I wrote it, I'm like, really? I'm not gonna really be into that.
Yeah.
Because that's fun to a certain extent to say to get the precision, but I think it's more
Yeah.
fun when you come
Yeah.
out like a Dylan. Dylan used to come out with songs from Tangled Up in Blue, and he's got multiple versions with different
Yeah.
lyrics.
Yeah.
And then some nights he would come out with a different version of it that had a little bit
It's
different
beautiful.
story.
Yeah. And that shows the artistry for whoever's there seeing live is seeing a treat. You're giving someone the, like, you remember back in the day with the bootleg recording of a live show, and you see
Yeah,
hear a
yeah.
band play a song completely different from the album, and that was gold. You know?
I think it's gold. I love that. 'Cause I love listening to like Neil
Yeah.
Young playing like
Yeah.
stuff from with Crazy Horse and him running different versions of Zuma.
Yes. Or
And
even
then
the whatever they would talk, it brings such a, legit feeling
yeah.
of uniqueness.
Well, I think it's really cool when you get a guy like a Neil Young or a Dylan and they choose because the way they feel that night to change the lyrics
Yeah.
or to add a
Yeah.
verse. And
Yeah.
it's such a treat when you're a fan and you're like, oh, I got this version where he changed these 4 lines,
Yeah.
and I've got stuff. I'm a big collector, so I've got all this stuff from the band and the Dylan and Hendrix and the Doors,
Yeah.
where Jim Morrison went and did a different version of the end, and it got different lyrics than this one. And I'm like, that's so cool because I like, it's this to me. I love when somebody does that.
Yeah.
I actually like that better than them just doing it the same way every night
Yeah. Yeah.
because
Yeah. But very few
it's hard.
can. Very few are able to.
Well, it's hard. I mean, so once you
It's
got your
hard.
song, some people just
Yeah.
walk out and just stick with it because that's what it is.
Well, yeah,
But
and also like the band, sometimes like the band has to be so connected to you that to see that you're going where are you going, and like it takes it
yeah, I
takes
think
a
you have
lot
to be a certain type of band to be able
road.
to,
It takes
yeah,
road. It takes miles into that.
to be able to handle that. So let me
Yeah.
get into like what you're doing with your next project because you said you got a brand new project coming, right?
Yeah, we got a release. It's actually have a residency going on between Bowery and the sister venues like Bowery Electric,
Cool.
East Berlin here in New York, and we're playing a show a month, and we're releasing a song every month, and we're starting with this one that's called LA, and it's the one that kind of have that Tom Petty vibe. And yeah, you guys should come out if you're in the New York area and follow us, and we'll give you all the details on that. And yeah, we got a November tour in the West Coast. There's there's a lot going on.
So is that going to all come out? When's the project coming out?
I think January or February is when the album is coming out, the full
But
album.
you'll be playing some of it in these shows. You'll be previewing it.
Yeah, we're gonna be playing those songs, and we have there's like videos coming out for those things. There's some
Cool.
good press coming out. It's a good moment. We're finally getting back, as if it was 2019.
So if the people go out to the velvicks.com they'll be able to get your tour
Yeah,
dates and
it's
where you're going to
everything
be,
is there.
where
Yeah.
everything's going to be. That we got it running. So when this is out there on the permanent link, we always encourage everybody, go to the band website. If you've got
Yeah.
merch,
We
buy
got
their
we
merch.
got some merch. Yeah.
Yeah, buy the merch, buy the records. Don't just stream the records. Download the records.
Yes. Yes.
Favorite the records. Hit the like. Add it to a playlist. This is real important.
Yes.
If you like a
Invite your
song,
friends out. If whenever
yeah,
we're nearby, invite your friends to see some good live music because we promise you we're gonna deliver a good show.
yeah, and if you're in the area, go see the band. Like when you've got a
Yes.
band that's playing, go see the
Yeah.
band. And if you're into the
Yeah.
band, to go see them. Like I'm a big fan of like Parliament and Almonds, right? And I used to
Yeah.
back in the day, I go see Allman Brothers 3 days in a row.
Yeah.
I go see
That's
the Dead
beautiful. That's
3 days
awesome.
in a row. I go see
Yeah.
Funkadelic 3 days in a row because the bands like that. Every time I went to see the next day, it wasn't the same show. It was
Yeah.
different, and
Yeah.
that's why you wanted to go again. Because it
Yeah.
was like
Yeah.
you didn't want to
Nowadays,
miss.
Pearl Jam is still doing that. They play 3 stadium nights, and it's 3 sets,
I love
different
it because
sets.
Eddie's a big fan of old music.
Yeah.
He loves the Who, and the Who were
Yeah.
famous for doing that. He
Yeah.
loves Zeppelin, Zeppelin, and a lot
I
of those
know.
bands.
It's so much respect. You have so much respect for the artist. Like if you just see 3 shows and you didn't listen to same song twice, you're like, what?
Well, Pearl Jam makes a lot of money. They sell like every show they do, you can buy.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they've like
So
ever,
smart.
ever since they've been doing it, they put out every single live
Yeah.
show,
It comes back
and
to what we're saying, to the bootleg era. Yeah.
yeah, it's worth it because it's not the same thing. It's like when you listen to
Yeah.
Pearl Jam, they're very much in the tradition of the Dead and Funkadelic, and
So cool.
all those.
And you have the team for that, and the moment, like before you get to the next city, you can download that show somewhere else. There's an audio engineer taking care of that and making sure that it's going to be up in the website, which generates a lot of interaction, and it's smart.
Well, I think it's cool for the fans. I've always been a big fan of that because I love the grunge era. Because what I liked about what happened with Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Soundgarden, all those bands came out with Alice in Chains. It kind of brought back musicianship,
Yeah,
to the
for
level of
sure.
what had been done in the '60s. Because you had
Yes.
this thing
Yeah.
where you had some bands that were kind of playing games, not to put them down, but
Yeah.
they were kind of like they were doing these MTV kind of corporate bands that were
Yes,
kind
of
of
course. Yeah.
built to like, okay, like smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you got Kurt, and it's like Sub Pop, and like that's a real band, not to come down, but it's a
Yeah.
real band because Kurt, you felt like he really meant what he was doing, right?
Yeah.
And when Eddie
Exactly.
gets on stage and he's jumping and climbing the rafters, he's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
he's into what he's doing.
Yeah.
He
Yeah, and
believes.
that is just fascinating. That really influences generations. And like I said, a 13-year-old kid will look at and watch that show and leave the place mesmerized, and a 70-year-old dude will do the same. And it's just
Yeah,
universal,
it shows you what music can be. It can elevate.
Yeah,
Like when you see like a
yeah,
Kurt Cobain and Eddie Vedder, or even when you saw, like Soundgarden, and you could see
yeah,
Chris Cornell and he hitting those notes. It's like,
yeah,
just believing in what you're doing. That you're trying to be like your idols. They're trying to be like
yeah,
what Robert Plant used to do.
yeah,
What like Roger Daltrey used to do, that they
yeah.
would get out there and believe it.
Yeah, we're trying to pull off something silly, and like the little like West Coast and East Coast like rivalry with rock, and we're like trying to get a band from there, from LA, to engage in this, so we can like start
Oh,
like
do that.
mutually,
West
yeah,
Coast.
like exactly, yeah,
Yeah,
and mutually promote each other, and then mutually develop, like, and eventually like
have a
meeting
show
and
together. Yeah,
yeah,
gladly.
touring, like, yeah,
Well, that's what I was doing a couple of weeks ago. Well, in July, I did this thing called the Peg Bedroom Festival. And what we did is we took every podcast guest we had, and we asked them, do you guys want to take 3 days and have this online festival? And we're going to do it again in November. And what we did, we ended up having 22 bands. We had interviewed 70 bands since 2018. And we had like
wow,
22 bands play over 3 days, like for almost like 8 hours a day of just live streaming them from their wherever they were for like doing 30-minute sets and 45-minute sets.
Fascinating.
And so
Awesome.
we invite you, like we're gonna try this again in November, and maybe
Oh
you're touring
yeah,
for that
count us
in
in.
November, like
Yeah.
November 19th through the 21st. We're gonna do the second PEG Bedroom Producer Festival, but basically we just take any
November
band.
22nd.
No, November 19th through the 21st
Okay.
of this year. We're going to do a live stream where we allow bands to just play from wherever they are, a half-hour set through
That's
this
awesome.
and you just set up your band, set up a webcam, set up your soundboard, and just play.
All right.
And
I think I love it. And then we're gonna do it like let's really work on to even if we're on the road, we find a studio and see if we can pull it off.
yeah, if you just find a place where you are, you just run a webcam. You know,
Yeah.
we can help people with like there's different tools where we found a way to do a multi-camera shot using OBS virtual
Cool.
webcam. So you could use your laptop webcam and another camera. We've
That's
done
smart.
like a two shot thing, you know, where you can
That's
have two
neat.
camera
Yeah.
angles, and you know, and you can have up to three if you're using this OBS. It's a free tool, and this actual platform supports it. And so
And then
we are
who chooses which camera is going to be like
well,
the
OBS
viewer?
is the OBS is a tool that allows
Yeah.
you to connect up to three different webcams,
Yeah, but
including
who's gonna like direct? You know, cut to camera one, camera two.
but they actually all three cameras show up on the screen at once.
You the viewer choose what to watch. Yeah.
No, they actually see all three camera angles all on one screen.
Mm,
You have like you
cool.
end up having like three windows open. Like you see how
Got
there's
it.
two windows open here?
Yeah.
You would end up having 3 or 4 windows. You could have up
Got
to
it.
4. And so
Got it.
every window
Interesting.
has a different angle of the band. Now, if you have a
Got it.
video switcher, you can switch. But if you don't have a
Yeah.
switcher, you can just let all 4 camera angles just be there.
Display.
And what's
Very
cool is when
interesting.
you have like this, you know, you see the singer on this angle, or you see it just
Yeah.
gives you a better than just one picture. It gives you
Yeah,
multiple
of
angles.
course. I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just you know, it's just when you're doing what you can and you don't have
Yeah.
all the bells and whistles, it gives you a way
Exactly.
to
Yeah.
present yourself. Kind of cool, kind of underground look, but it does give you more interesting look than just a dead on one view. Um,
Very cool.
there's just the cool things you can do. But yeah, we're just excited to give the indie world like a free venue. And we also
That's
found
so
a
cool.
way with the next version of this is we can actually connect it to Facebook ticketing. And Facebook ticketing allows people to actually charge like $1 to $5 a ticket. And
Very
you can
cool.
actually make it so the band could actually charge tickets. Now, whether or not somebody actually buys the ticket, we don't know. But there's
Yeah.
ability with all these virtual things, like we're trying to make it so, well, maybe you could actually do it, because if you charge $1 for a virtual ticket and then 3,000 people show up,
Exactly.
that's
Yeah.
not so bad.
No, that's the tour. The tour is paid off.
Yeah, it ends
You
up
paid your tour.
not so bad. It actually is like, well, that
Yeah.
seems low, but like, what if 10,000 people show up online? Then
Yeah.
it's not so bad.
No, absolutely
Um,
not.
so yeah, there's different things you can do, and we're trying to get on the cutting edge of what we can do. And so we're just providing like every one of our guests. We put it out there that we're going to do that, and we invite you to be a part of it if you want
Yeah,
to.
no, I'd totally be down for it. Absolutely. I'm sure the band will be stoked.
Yeah, we just think we need to give indie artists, as much help as they can, because with all the venues that close, if doing this stuff online is a good way to engage with your fans. It's a good way to connect, and we just love to do this. So, like when your EP is ready, or you have got other stuff, we always have our bands come back. We've had multiple episodes over the last 3 years where we have bands come back, do like album release
That's so
episodes
cool.
and
Awesome.
different
Yeah.
things. So yeah, if you want to do that, you can come back. But
All right.
basically this is going to go out as it is on all the channels we're on. We're on Twitch, we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook. We'll give you the permanent links once we're off the air. But then we'll also convert to audio through our partner Anchor FM. And so this will be on Spotify and Apple and 9 other
Very
platforms
cool.
like Radio Public and Stitcher.
Here,
and
I want
Overcast.
to get us also on our social media here. Smile.
Yeah, and we
Yeah,
just like to encourage people to to help us do this for free. Check out
good.
our link. We do have a merch store for the Ghost, and you can buy a shirt like what I'm wearing today. You can see the Ghost hoodie.
Nice.
So
Yes.
this is our logo, and so we've got
Yeah.
like a hoodie, and we've got t-shirts, and this is the hoodie version. But
Very cool.
yeah, and we've got a merch store. It's on our Instagram. It's on our Facebook. You can check it out. And so that's all we ask people to check it out. Like anybody else, it helps us do this for free for the artists that we talk to. But
Very cool.
thank you for being on the show. We really were excited to have
Thank
you
you
here.
immensely. Yeah, it was a joy. I mean, we could talk for hours. I'm sure if we sit in a bar and we forget, like, turn
Yeah.
the phone off, we're gonna talk for 5 hours.
Well, I think musicians, we all get. I think the cool thing I wanted to do with the show is being a musician myself. I said, well, what happens if a musician actually interviews musicians instead of
Yeah.
having somebody that's not a musician?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
then they're going to ask certain questions that somebody that's not a musician might not know what to ask.
Yes. You were in
So
the shoe of a musician, so like, yeah, you can hold like an hour of interview, and you don't even see the time passing.
yeah, 'cause I'm not trying to ask you about your girlfriend or what you're doing
Yeah.
on the social media, because there's different guys that are doing different things, and
Yeah.
that's what they do. But I'm like, I want to get into the music.
Very cool. Very cool.
All right, so thank you very much for being
All
on the
right.
show. We'll have
Thank
you
you,
on, and
Peg. And let's stay in touch. You
yeah,
know how to reach out, so reach out anytime.
okay, thank you.
All
Have a
right.
good
Have a
night.
good one. Bye.